Have you ever wondered why a book as widely known as the Bible is restricted in China? Think about that for a second. This is the best-selling book in human history. Over 5 billion copies sold. You can find it in hotels, schools, bookstores, and nearly every American home. But in China, a country of 1.4 billion people, you cannot buy it on Amazon. You cannot download it from the App Store. And in some provinces, simply owning one can get you reported to authorities. But here's where it gets really strange. China is actually the largest printer of Bibles in the entire world. Millions of copies roll off Chinese printing presses every single year, so China prints the Bible, but won't let its own people read it freely. Why? Let's start with the facts, because this story is more shocking than most people realize. In 2021, Apple was forced to remove the Bible app and the Quran app from its Chinese app store, not because Apple wanted to, because the Chinese government demanded it. In 2025, China completely banned online sales of the Bible. You can't order it on any Chinese e-commerce platform, not on JD.com, not on Taobao, not on any Chinese version of Amazon. And it doesn't stop there. Since 2018, Chinese authorities have demolished hundreds of churches, forcibly removed over 1,000 crosses from church buildings in Zhejiang province alone, and confiscated Bibles during raids on private Christian gatherings. In January 2026, just months ago, Chinese authorities arrested 30 members of a single church in Beijing. Their crime? Meeting privately to worship. And yet, despite all of this, there are an estimated 97 million Christians in China today. That's more Christians than there are people in Germany. The CCP has been trying to suppress Christianity for 75 years, and it's losing. But why is it trying in the first place? To understand why China fears the Bible, you have to go back to 1949. When Mao Zedong and the Communist Party took power, one of their first moves was to expel every foreign Christian missionary from the country. Thousands of them. Gone. The reasoning was simple. Mao needed to be the highest authority in China. Not God, not the Pope, not any foreign institution. For decades, Christianity went underground. Secret churches, hidden Bibles, whispered prayers. Then, something unexpected happened. After Mao died and China opened its economy in the 1980s, Christianity started spreading fast. House churches popped up in cities and rural villages alike. People were searching for meaning in a rapidly changing society. By the time Xi Jinping came to power in 2012, there were already tens of millions of Christians in China. And Xi saw this as a direct threat, not just a religious threat, a political one. So under President Xi Jinping, the government launched a policy called Sinicization of Religion. Sinicization means making something Chinese, making it fit Chinese values, making it loyal to China first. Applied to Christianity, this means churches must display Chinese flags alongside any religious symbols. Sermons must include content that supports the Communist Party and core socialist values. Religious teachings that contradict party positions, for example, teachings about rights, about individual conscience, about loyalty to God over government, must be removed or changed. Because understanding why China does what it does becomes even more interesting when you put it next to what America does. Before anything else, America said the government cannot touch religion. Government cannot set up an official religion. Government cannot stop you from practicing your faith. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't random. While China says religion is powerful and the government must control it, America says religion is powerful, so the government must stay completely away from it. Same starting observation. Completely opposite conclusion. Now, I want to be fair here. Because this video isn't a China bad, America good story, America's relationship with religion has its own complicated history. The difference is, America debates these things in courts, in elections, in public arguments. In China, the government just decides. And that's the end of the conversation. What does this actually look like for real people? Because there are an estimated 38 to 100 million Christians in China right now. The numbers are hard to verify precisely for reasons that will become obvious in a moment, but it's a lot of people, and their experiences vary enormously. If you attend a state-approved church, you can go to Sunday service. You can sing hymns. You can read Bible passages, the approved ones. You can participate in religious community. But the pastor has been approved by the government. The sermons cannot contradict party values. The church cannot run programs for children under 18. And you know that someone, somewhere, is probably paying attention. Many Christians in China do this and feel that their faith is genuine and meaningful within these constraints. They found ways to live their faith inside a system that limits it. If you attend a house church, an unofficial underground church, the risk level goes up significantly. House churches. Small groups of Christians who meet in homes, apartments, sometimes outdoors, have existed in China for decades. During the harshest periods of Mao's rule, they were the only way Christianity survived. Today, the government's attitude toward house churches shifts depending on the political climate. During some periods, they're mostly left alone. During others, especially since 2018 when the government tightened regulations, they're raided. Leaders are arrested. Members are fined or detained. Church equipment is confiscated. In 2018, a well-known house church in Chengdu called Chengdu Early Rain Covenant Church was raided. Its pastor, Wang Yi, was arrested and sentenced to 9 years in prison. Dozens of members were also arrested or placed under surveillance. His crime, according to the government, inciting subversion of state power. His crime, according to him, preaching the gospel. If you're a Christian in a rural area or an ethnic minority community, the situation can be even more intense. There are documented reports of crosses being removed from church buildings by government order, of religious symbols being replaced with portraits of Xi Jinping inside some churches, and in certain regions, particularly Xinjiang, where the Uyghur Muslim minority lives, religious repression has reached levels that the United Nations has described as potential crimes against humanity. The Bible situation is part of a much larger story about what happens when a government decides it must control every belief inside its borders. Now here's the part that honestly sounds like a movie. Because all of that pressure, all of that surveillance, all of those restrictions didn't make Chinese Christians stop wanting Bibles. It made them creative. For decades, there has been a network of organizations that smuggle Bibles into China. The most famous is an organization called Open Doors. Founded in the 1950s by a Dutch missionary nicknamed Brother Andrew, it has been delivering Bibles into restricted countries for over 70 years. Their early operations into China were genuinely covert. Small groups, disguised packages, Bibles hidden inside other goods. Over the years, millions of Bibles have made it into China through these networks, and here's what's remarkable about the demand side. Stories from house church members and underground Christians in China describe people who had never owned a Bible treating one like the most precious thing in their life. Handwriting passages, memorizing entire books, sharing one copy among dozens of people. There's a well-documented phenomenon in Chinese Christianity of Bible hunger, a phrase used to describe the intensity with which underground believers pursue access to Scripture precisely because it's restricted. Psychology actually has a name for this effect. When you tell people they can't have something, they often want it more, not less. The Communist Party, for all its sophistication, may have accidentally made the Bible more powerful in China by trying to control it. Now let's jump to the present day because this story has a 21st century chapter that's genuinely fascinating. The government's challenge now isn't just physical Bibles, it's digital ones. For a brief period, you could download Bible apps on Chinese app stores. YouVersion, one of the most popular Bible apps in the world, was available in China. In 2018, it was removed from Chinese app stores, gone overnight. Other Bible apps followed. One by one, they disappeared. But here's where the cat and mouse game gets interesting. Chinese Christians use VPNs, virtual private networks, to access the internet outside of China's firewall. Through VPNs, they can reach Bible websites, Christian podcasts, theological resources, sermons from pastors around the world. VPNs are technically illegal for personal use in China. but enforcement is inconsistent. Tens of millions of Chinese people use them daily. So you have this situation where the government says the Bible is restricted, but a motivated Chinese Christian can find it online within minutes if they know how. The government knows this, and yet the official restrictions remain. Why? Because the restrictions aren't really about making it impossible to access the Bible. They're about making it clear who's in charge. The message isn't, you can never read this book. The message is, you read it on our terms, not yours. That distinction matters enormously, and it tells you a lot about how this government thinks. Here's a detail that I think is one of the most revealing in this whole story. China actually prints Bibles. This might surprise you. If the Bible is banned, why is China printing it? The answer is complicated. There is a government-approved printing facility in China, the Amity Printing Company in Nanjing, which has printed hundreds of millions of Bibles since it opened in 1987. But the vast majority of those Bibles are for export. They're printed in China and shipped around the world because China has cheap, high-quality printing infrastructure. The Bibles printed there for domestic use go to the state-controlled churches. They are rationed, controlled, tracked. Now, I want to be really careful here because this is the part where it's easy to get things wrong. It would be easy to tell the story in a way that makes it seem like every Chinese person is quietly suffering under an oppressive system and secretly wishing they could practice Christianity freely. That's not accurate, and it's not fair. The reality is much more complicated and more interesting. Many Chinese people genuinely support the government's approach to religion, not because they're afraid to say otherwise, but because they actually agree with the underlying logic. There's a real, sincere belief among many Chinese citizens that strong central control is what kept China stable and allowed it to grow from a poor, struggling country to the world's second-largest economy in just a few decades. They see political division, social conflict, misinformation, and they think our system works better. That perspective is real. It deserves to be taken seriously. At the same time, there are Chinese citizens, including many Chinese Christians, who experience the restrictions as genuinely painful, who feel that their faith is being used as a political tool, who want to worship freely without government eyes watching. Those voices are real too. And because China doesn't have free elections or free press in the way that Western countries define those things, we don't have a perfect way to know how many people fall into each category. What we do know is that the system is designed to make expressing dissent very costly. If this made you think about something differently, hit that like button. Subscribe if you want more deep dives like this, and drop your comment. I'll be in the comments reading every single one. See you next time.